That's live, but I'm not seeing us, so just give me 2 seconds. We actually are live. Okay, amazing. We just closed that down. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, beautiful ones. Aisling and I are coming to you today to talk about a whole broad subject. We actually don't know what we're going to talk about. We haven't got a plan, if you will, but we're going to free flow together on this whole massive subject of the journey of moving from fear to trust. And we've got so much to share with you on a million different nuances around this. And ultimately, the journey of moving from fear to trust is an absolutely crucial and central component to creating the new earth. And we're going to kind of explore many different angles of that. I'm just going to introduce myself and Aisling first, and then I'm going to start with one point that I want to highlight about this, and then I'm going to hand over to you, Aisling. So Aisling and I have been friends since 2011, I think it was, isn't it? And how we connected was over the Girl Against Fluoride campaign. Like the whole rest of Ireland, I came across Aisling on Facebook and just instantly knew, oh my gosh, soul sister for life. We're going to be in each other's lives forever and ever and ever and journey together. And that has certainly proven to be correct. And we connected over a vision, Aisling. We connected over the vision of the new earth, essentially, isn't it? And we are visionaries, as are so many of the beautiful beings that we're here to reach with our messages and with our shared message, and in this beautiful connective field of all of us around the planet who are here to birth the new earth. And on the point of moving from fear to trust, I just want to tell you a sort of quantum physics fact, and then I'm going to let Aisling lead in with this. Fear and love are opposite frequencies. And it is completely and totally impossible for the frequency waves of love and fear to simultaneously coexist. We've heard so many times, you know, in spiritual movements since the dawn of time, love is the ultimate, love is everything. And of course, we're talking here about the genuine, true, pure frequency of divine love, rather than the sort of distorted human idea of what a lot of people think love is that really isn't love. But the pure frequency of that expression of love is the healer, is the ultimate healer. It's the ultimate remover of illusion. It's the ultimate liberator. It's the ultimate everything. And when fear is present on any level of our being, it cancels out, as an actual frequency wave, it cancels out the expression of love. So that happens. It then makes it 100% impossible for us to trust in life. If we can't trust in life, we have no footing. We can't allow the support of the infinite to come in. And we end up with this situation on the planet where we've got millions of people, billions of people running around like anchorless, rudderless ships with no footing, and us small humans, if you will, are trying to do the creation of the new earth somehow by ourselves without the influence of the divine, which obviously is not going to work because it hasn't worked so far. You know, we need to be returning to, in my work, I refer to it as returning to the heart of God. I'm sure Aisling has a similar way of describing it as well. We have to return to allowing the divine to be right at the forefront of the ways that we're living, through trust in life, in the divine, in ourselves, in the guidance we're being given, in everything under the sun, but fundamentally trust in the divine to guide us on a higher vision beyond the small self, on a higher vision beyond the traps and the illusions and the limitations of realities of old, beyond what we're trapped in on a planetary level right now. Trust is the force that gives us the capacity, in terms of quantum mechanics, which then translates into our body, to align in frequency with actually being a vibrational match for heaven on earth to be possible. So over to you, Aisling.
Yeah, well, I would just say that's such an amazing description, because I'm thinking back of my book, that, you know, and writing the whole process was really, you know, diving into the very beginning and how divine has been present from the very moment of my arrival here on earth, from just this constant theme running through my life. And I suppose the more challenges or initiations, I like to call them, that I've moved through, and especially since I became an adult, I've been I'm just trying to think, I was a little bit late to become an adult, so I was a bit of a late bloomer, but again, that was all part of my path to actually discover who I was, because I had to be pulled into the alignment of actually the life path that I'm on, because I was so hooked into the matrix and the way things are, you know, planetary, and the way society is operating. So I had to be pulled out of that, and I've had this constant divine presence moving through, and that was really embodied in the role of my mother, Martha. She really held that for me, and I know gave me the nurturing and the confidence to actually set out on this path, you know, and to go, you can do this, you can voyage out into the unknown. And I think when I talk about the unknown, a lot of people find that very scary and very daunting. But like what we're talking about here is entering into the unknown is actually entering into direct union with the divine. So it's not going into this scary abyss. It's actually surrendering the smaller self, who you think you are, and allowing that greater presence to actually come in and guide you and direct you and give you the tangible action steps that you need to take to bring in what is yours to bring in. And so I feel this message came through me, you know, and it was really in a conversation with my mom in the summer of 2017. What is it that you're here to do? That message was moving from fear to trust. I have to do that first and lead that, and then support others to cross that bridge from fear to trust. So all of my message and my life's work is dedicated to that. And it's not just some fancy concept that I plucked out of thin air. It's actually a directive that I've been given, and that I've been training and being, you know, given all these different initiations through the death of my mother, through establishing my sacred work, through a wild pregnancy where I was pregnant and I did not have any medical tests. I did not see any medical providers. And I just trusted in my body and in my baby and nurturing my body in the best way that I possibly can. And then with the free birth of Rian last year, where I went through this massive portal, and I could witness myself in that birth, where I was seeing the different fears and the different programs that are around childbirth. And it was like I was just like dissolving them. I was dissolving them as I was going through the birth. And it was like the intensity was building and building to the point where, you know, my body had fully opened and Rian was able to emerge. And as he emerged, I was like, I've actually completely given over to the divine. That was the thing in my mind. I was just like, oh, this is what it feels like to completely surrender. You know, because it's such a physically all-consuming experience to birth a baby into the world. But I feel like I want to translate that message into our whole lives, and especially how we are showing up to our work, to the directive that we're all being given to actually establish ourselves into our positions. And it's such a daunting path when you don't have others to kind of give you that signal that it's actually safe to do so. So I feel our conversation, broadcasting this out today, and for those who will catch us in the replay in whenever, it will actually come into your life when you actually need to hear that message, because you are also here and part of this establishing a new earth paradigm. And I think to be able to let go of that fear and to establish that feeling of safety, that's the only way, and I feel that for my own self, that's the only way that I can actually ground in and actually go, okay, I'm on a pathway here, but I have to be in a state of trust for it to come in. And if I go out, and I recognize when I go out now very, very easily, and I have various tools that will help to support me to come back in. But it's when you are in complete alignment that then it becomes a much more graceful, easy path, because it's actually all there, even though, you know, it might not necessarily be visible to your eye. And I've really witnessed that in the writing of the book, because I started writing it in January of 2019. And then I completed it this summer. And when I received the foreword from my editor, Mary Helen, I just broke down crying, because I was just like, I wasn't crying from sadness. I was crying with absolute awe at myself, to go, oh my gosh, you have handed over everything and trusted. And now you see a tangible result of that. And I know that message, it's for me, but it's for so many. And it's like, it's not up to me to make it happen or force it to happen. But it's this continuous surrendering to this. And it is like this organic unfolding. And I know you talk about that a lot now, Ciara, with the organic templates, to actually align with that. And the more that you can align to that, and then you can see more and more tangible evidence building up in your life, that's when your trust starts to build in yourself and in what you're here to do. And then that is contagious. Like when we share that with each other and we inspire each other, we are really building this, like boots on the ground. We are building it. So even though it might feel like this massive, vast vision of what you feel you would love to see and what you feel is your part, yeah, if you just come back to that place of like trusting in what is the next step that I have to take, and then open to receiving the support, it's all there. And I'm seeing that over and over again. And I just want to broadcast that out so that others can just go, right, it's time to throw off the masks. I'm not pretending to be who I'm not anymore. It's like, this is the time to go all in, and not hang back or not look for permission from others who cannot see the vision, and they're not part of that, and that's not their role. So it's like, it's very important to have that discernment about who you're sharing this with. And that's why our relationship is one of the most important relationships in my life, because you stoke that fire in me all the time, where I'm like, I've kind of gone out, and then it just helps me to come back in. And even if I don't directly have to ask you a question, it's like, I know just having your presence and being in your field and being in your visionary spirit all helps me to kind of come back into that place of, yes, you can do it. And yes, you can lead something that I know it's inside me. I can feel it. And I've already shown to myself that I've done so much of that, but it's like, it's going to be, it's a lifetime's unfolding.
Next level. Yeah. I love all of that so much, Aisling. I adore how you described that. And you mentioned something that I really want to jump into a bit further. It's a perfect kind of lead in to something that I wanted to touch in. I want to talk in a moment, by the way, I'll just park this, about being leaders of a new time, because that's who we're speaking to. That's who we are. That's who all of us are. And that's what we're speaking to right now. But first, just want to come back to where you were saying about birth being an all-consuming physical experience. So I obviously don't have any children, but it's a fantastic analogy. And fundamentally, if we look around at the state of affairs in the world, it's obviously broken. The only logical solution, and I know you've included this in your book as well, and this has been a huge part of the journey, is to build something new. We're not here to fix the broken. We're here to build something new. So if we're going to build something that's outside of what is, inherently, you have to go into unknown territory. That's just basic logic. So where I find this gets really, really tricky for so many people is that you can have the concept, like mentally, of, okay, I'll trust in life, I'll trust in life, I'll trust in life. But it has to become that all-consuming physical experience where with your whole body, you're actually in the frequency of trust. So it's like you're throwing yourself with your physicality into, I'm in the pathway of what I'm being called to, and I'm physically taking the steps with my actual body. That's where the rubber meets the road, if you will. I wonder if you could share a little bit more about what's been your journey of coming into that place, because I think that's the sticking point for so many people. Like, nice idea, but then something challenging happens, or there's a family scenario or something. It's like it goes out the window totally, and we disembody in what we're holding as our highest principles.
Absolutely. And I think it's because I have such a sensitive nervous system, this happens to me a lot. So I'm very, very accustomed to it and in a practice with it. So for me, coming back into the body and, living as a majority of the time experience, because obviously there's times where I get pulled out and have to bring myself back in. But actually, number one is actually creating stillness with my own self. and coming out of the, like, all of the opinions of all the different, different people that I have in my life, and coming back into that stillness. And then for me to be fully in my body, I have to regulate my nervous system. And a big part of that, for me anyway, is nourishing my body through nutrition and feeding it. For me, like, for example, the nervous system is electrical in nature. So when it's activated and triggered, it's using up a lot of resources, and it's quite draining to the physical body. And that's when I know I feel disembodied, then when I'm not doing that, and I've kind of forgotten to nourish myself. So having the correct amount of, like, mineral salts. So I do a lot of juicing, and I find straight away I can feel my body relaxing back into a state of trust when I'm feeding it that. So it's not a concept, it's actually on a physical level. I'm nourishing my body with the right minerals, and I can just feel myself, like, rooting back in. My adrenals feel steady. They're not overfiring. They're not underfiring. And I keep coming back to that. And when I get triggered and activated, it's like you actually go away from your body and you forget to do these things. So it's like just that constant reminder. And obviously, time in nature, grounding on the earth, swimming in the sea when it's warmer. Not right now, it's a bit too cold. But like just tuning back into your own presence and away from anything that's distorted. And I find even media or anything like that that's pulling you out, all those things have to be really eliminated or minimized, because the majority of the time we need to be back in communion with our own selves, because that's the only place that we get our actual answers. And that's something that I love about you and your work here, is like, you're not saying, oh, this is my 5-step formula, bum, 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 this is how you do it. You are giving us the frameworks and the guidance, but ultimately you're always bringing us back to ourselves, because the answers are in our body. But we have to be embodied first, regulated, and then we have the space and the capacity to actually hear our own selves and what's the guidance. And it's like, okay, you're on a pathway, so like you're on a journey, and you have to go, okay, I'm here, where do I actually want to get to? And I find unless you're actually fully regulated in your body, are you able to hear, okay, this is what feels like the most natural flowing steps in action, because this is actually the pathway. You're able to attune to the pathway that's not seen. Maybe some people are seers, they can see, but like for me, I'm very much more on a feeling level. So we have to be in a massive discipline with that, like an athlete. You have to treat yourself like an athlete. It's not a one-time thing, it's a daily thing, it's a daily practice. And I think the message of moving from fear to trust is very much like it's that dynamic feeling of like you're always going through these, you're always going to meet new edges, you're always going to be encountering new territory. And then it's just remind yourself, oh, hey, I'm in a new, like right now, I'm in a new initiation right now. Of course you're going to be activated. So how can you support yourself? How are you nourishing yourself? How are you sleeping? Like, what are you listening to? Like all these things. It's not just like nutrition is a part of it, but it has to be, it's like holistically looking at your the whole picture of your life. And creating a nourishing incubator, like when you're pregnant with a baby. This is exactly the same. You're pregnant with a vision, and you have to protect your energy, and your field has to be protected from interference. Brilliant. So any wrong frequencies can just throw you out, and can like knock out your immune system, dysregulate your nervous system, all these things. And it's not to feel afraid of life, but it's actually to go, this is the lay of the land, and this is a game of mastering my own self, so that I have the capacity to land in what I know I'm here for. And that's really the journey that I'm on right now.
That is so brilliantly described. Love every word of what you said there. That is just spot on. I find for myself that even if I can see the thing, if you're not embodied, it's impossible to do it. It's impossible to follow through. Something that I notice that happens for a lot of my clients, and I've definitely experienced this myself as well, is you meet a challenge moment. You meet like a new level of establishing yourself within unknown territory. And there's instantly the feeling of, okay, I'm doing it wrong. I'm not 100% like, I'm not 100% like on it, And there's the mental loop that instantly comes up instead of what you just said. I'm in unknown territory. How do I support myself to navigate this? And the second you go into a mental loop, you're actually disembodying as well. And this is a huge, huge trap area. I think it's a good point to mention that where we're creating the new earth, in this journey of creating the new earth together, fundamentally, we're leaving matrices of old. And the matrix as a whole, people have different ideas of what they feel that means, but the matrix as a whole, if we just look at it as this giant imprisoning infrastructure that traps us in various ways into a less life, its whole setup is designed to keep you out of yourself. So all of this mental stuff that happens that we trip ourselves up over is all a product of that one matrix. And I find simply knowing that gives ample fuel to activate the warrior within and say, I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing that game. And I love the way you described knowing the lay of the land, because this is it. If we know we're attempting to navigate out of an old giant matrix and build something else in its place, you have to be aware. You have to have your wits about you. You have to have your eyes wide open. You have to be listening. You have to be present. You need to be on the ball, and we're still in that territory. And I find for a lot of light workers, there's this idea of, heaven on earth. Yeah, it's there, it's done, etc. But it's not embodied, obviously. I mean, there's a war on right now. It's not on the earth yet. We're here to create it for all of life. And there's a disconnect between what is the embodiment I need to do in myself to materialize this and having it as just some idea that exists over here. And that, I feel, Aisling, is kind of where your work comes in. You're like a bridge between the vision and, okay, now we need to actually manifest it in the physical realm. And you've got millions of tools that you utilize to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's taking it away from like just these kind of idealistic, ideas and bringing them down and actually grounding them in and rewriting life on earth. And that's what we're called to do. But in order to do so, there has to be like, there's so many different layers and there's so many different aspects, which, the story in my book, I kind of go through like how I started with my the physical part, physically detoxing and supporting myself with nutrition, but then going into the emotional area where, like purifying the emotional bodies and, clearing the meridians and really releasing all of the distorted frequencies that I had, been carrying for so long. So it's like, it is a whole process really of like purifying from the old way, while simultaneously living in the current times, realizing that what you're doing now is actually paving a way for the future.
Yep.
And so even though you might not necessarily be doing like what the mainstream are doing, like even I had a conversation earlier with somebody and they were asking me like, do you think that like food has a big impact on health? And I said, absolutely, fundamentally, but that is not actually not thought of, in the collective, which is like, what you consume in your food obviously has an impact on your body, but as in like we've disconnected so far from ourselves that we're even asking that question. So I was like, okay, yeah, Aisling, you've got some work to do here to actually see this in, so that when Rian is 18 months, so that when he becomes of age, that is just a given. It's not even, I'm not even having to, impose anything on him or say, oh, you have to eat your vegetables. It's like, he'll be telling me how he has to take care of his own body. and so, for me, it's like, just, being able to support this whole process so that you're able to be a bridge. It's like, okay, this is the way things are done in the mainstream. However, I'm going to choose in my own life to actually cultivate what I'm most called to. And what I'm most called to is like, what is the most wholesome and nourishing, supportive way, which is ultimately the way of what Mother wants for all of us to be here on earth, to be nourished and supported so that we can have our full life force and vitality while we're in physical form. And that might not necessarily be the case yet. However, we are cultivating the future. And to lead that, you know, another example would be for me doing like the free birth. I imagine in the future that will just be like a given.
Yeah.
But right now, as it stands, it's seen as like so far out there, because it's the most natural thing in the whole world. Again, it's like it makes most sense to birth your baby at home with no interference, because it's a sacred initiation. And we've been, again, another example of how far we've been pulled away from our true self.
Yeah.
That we feel it's a medical event to be saved from, when actually it's not a medical event. It's actually something, it's a natural physiological event process that is best supported at home. So again, I was called to do that, and in that process of you know, knowing and making that decision, I knew I had the wits about me. I know the lay of the land. I know how programmed and how much fear is around childbirth. So I did not tell anyone my plans. I concealed that because I had to protect myself and I had to protect my baby. So again, we have to have discernment with what we're doing. But you know, I wasn't hiding myself. I was sharing that with you and, you know, those who are in my inner trusted circle. And it's the same with our own visions. We have to be we have to be as caring to our vision as we are with a child. We have to guard them and steward them and protect them and know. So it's like, yeah, all the different tools. It's about getting like, as you always talk about, the inner family, getting that right and getting all those parts in place so that your whole self is supporting this, and you're not looking to the outside world for, oh, please validate what I'm doing. Is it right? Is it right? When you're most likely going to get shut down because you're not doing what people are doing.
Precisely.
So yeah, you need to be looking in the right places for that support. And ultimately you have to be looking to yourself over and over and over again, because you know, like we all know. And that's why our relationship started, because we had this like recognition of like, you know, and I know, and oh my gosh, we both see it. We both see what's possible, and we know that fighting against those systems is a waste of time and futile. And our greatest service to life is actually on creating the new earth and creating, like, having this conversation, having the networks and the infrastructures, I feel, is what we're building right now. And I think we'll be building this over the next coming decades.
I agree.
Where we're actually holding this connection, boots on the ground, and we're able to support each other to bring this in and share like the tools and the ways that work, and then also the ways that we have to, you know, move away from that are not supportive. Yeah.
I love that so much. Let's talk about becoming leaders, and another aspect of birthing your vision that I want to touch on. So you've kind of touched on it already, Aisling, and I'm just going to put some additional words to it as well. We're leaders of a new time, essentially, and we're birthing a new earth, as we've been saying. And that innately means that we're going to be doing something against the grain, totally different to what the mainstream is doing. And I find a huge, huge challenge that shows up for so many magical beings who, like us, are here to birth a new earth, leaders of the future, is we're doing something so very different, but we don't realize, because of the intangible nature of birthing a vision in contrast to, let's say, birthing a physical baby. You know, it's much more obvious with that. Perhaps I kind of need to protect my space. With a birthing a vision, it might be less obvious because you can't touch it just yet until it's formed. And there's this thing that occurs where we're not containing our own fields enough that we allow ourselves to be pushed and pulled by the current. So for example, let's say for the majority of people, you have family around, you have peers around, etc., and they are all going in a certain way. For us to successfully build our visions, we have to be going this way, no matter what anybody else is doing. And that can come down to such basic, everyday stuff. Like you're at a family gathering, for instance, they're all eating something in particular. Can you hold your ground in, this is what I'm doing, even though I'm the only one who's doing it? They've got a particular routine. Well, actually, I need to take care of myself in a particular way. I'm the only one who's doing it. They're doing particular activities. I'm going to do this activity and I'm not going to do that because that's what's required as I'm stewarding this field. And I find that this is a place where many get tripped up because we are so conditioned by fear around being rejected, fear of being abandoned, fear of being attacked by the tribe, and so on. And you and I were talking about the tribe earlier, and I know this has been a huge component of your journey, so I'd love if you could say more in a sec, that we disembody essentially. And what we're doing then is we're giving over our power. Okay, tribe, the status quo can just kind of steer me a bit, and we lose that holding of the container that's necessary to birth this thing outside of the existing paradigm, just like you had to do with the free birth of Rian.
Yeah, it's absolutely such a massive component to this journey. And I love what you're saying about containing the field, because that's really what it is. And you are a steward of that. And so, yeah, in order to interact with others, you have to be confident enough to actually do something different.
Yeah. And I think I'd just add a point to that as well, that you have to accept yourself as a leader.
That's it.
A leader, by virtue of who they are, is standing out in front. That's the definition of a leader.
I know.
So you have to be really cool with, that's what I am, and I'm going to stand out. That's a fact of the matter.
Yeah. And
What's
so,
been-
it's I'm just thinking of like an example of like, yeah, because especially around food, it's like, why don't you eat these things? You know, and you don't need to explain yourself. You know, you can just do your own thing. But I think again, it's like, it has to come down to, it's not actually not what anyone else thinks. I love what you said there. It's actually that acceptance of who you are, and settling into your space with what is the most attuned to supporting you. And it's not even just about food. It's like everything. It's like you're doing, it's not that you're going against the grain. You're not going against people like in opposition, but you actually are bringing a new way.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a different flow. You're not going to be just going with the flow and flowing along with what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're a current that's moving somewhere that other currents are not yet going.
Yeah, and then eventually, like, those currents may start to flow in that direction, but you'll have moved on to the next thing by that stage. You know, you'll be always like on the edge of bringing in the new.
Yeah. And
so, yeah, you just have to be confident. But a key part of that I keep coming back to in so many of my experiences is that when you're not sure of what you're doing yet, guard it until you're like more rooted with it.
100%.
That's where I feel you get pulled out when you're not in that.
You know, I advocate for show, don't say.
Show, do not say, and do not explain. And drain your life force energy. Because when I started doing like elimination communication with Rian, I found it ruffled people's feathers because it was something different, and I got like a lot of negative feedback from family members. And if I'd listened to that initially, I would never have done it. But I didn't actually explain to them. They just saw me doing it, and they were kind of like, "Oh, you're making your life very hard there." And now Rian's 18 months and he wears underpants. And he makes signals for when he wants to go to the potty. Like, he doesn't always do it because sometimes he's busy, you know, and he's learning and he's all in that. But he's on the journey of mastery with it, where he's, you know, there's kids like double his age that are still in nappies. So again, that was something that I was flowing in a different current with what the mainstream is, like, just put on a nappy. And when you are doing something differently, like, don't be put off by people saying something that isn't supportive. In actual fact, I find when I'm getting that now, I know that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And if I'm not getting that, I'm actually not doing anything, you know. So it's like, when you're getting that feedback, it's like you're on your path, like, you know, it's good.
Yeah.
use it as inspiration to kind of go, oh yeah, you're doing the right thing. And even like with the programming of everything, that's out there. You know, I've gotten the advice to get Rian a television to just like give me space. And everything in my body was just going to go, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because I know that I'm here to steward Rian, because I know that he's here for a completely different life path to like the mainstream.
Mm.
And that's why he chose myself and Richie, because we see that in him. We know that we're supporting that. So yeah, I think you do need to carve out some level of support to be able to hold that field as well. And I think that's really, really, like, for me, it's essential. And I think we talk about this a lot, that it really is it's a collective co-creation that we are all attuning to right now. And so if we can lean into that support in each other, that we're able to really, oh yes, this is coming in.
And that's exactly why we're doing this call. I'd love to hear your perspective on this, Aisling, because I was going to say there, I don't know if we've had the same experience, but I think we have in a different way. And it's related to your experience with the campaign, which you've written about in your book as well. I found, and even if we look at this historically, you know, historically, leaders have been under fire in some way or another. And this is a very big reason why so many magical beings who are here to create the new earth are hesitant to really own and claim and embrace the leadership. Yes, I am here as a leader of a new time. And so for me, I experienced from very early on in my life that I was always shut down as being just, you know, you're too tall, you're too sure of yourself, you're too, just shut up because you're making us all really uncomfortable. That was my experience. And I know when it came to the campaign for you, you experienced a version of that in two completely different ways from different groups of people. Could you talk into that piece and how this has been part of like the initiation of really embodying trust in the path and in your leadership?
Oh yeah. Well, I think, yeah, a big, huge part of my, like, the campaign was, firstly, I suppose, coming up against like the government and like status quo and getting like massive backlash. That was quite shocking at the time. Having awful articles written about us and threats and all these horrible emails, and yeah, just a sense of like hostility. And that was like the first level of the initiation to go, okay, this is all part of it. And then I had the experience of people who were like in the movement, you know, kind of turning against each other, and, you know, just this kind of ego power game, you know, wanting to be the first person to do this and all this. And then I suppose I changed direction. Instead of fighting against the system, I had to go firstly on a very internal journey, and I was talking about, you know, inner activation, activism. And again, I had to kind of go through this massive fear portal where I was petrified of what people were going to say to me, because I was no longer the fighting activist tearing down the government and, you know, fighting the system. I was like, there's actually a different way to create change. And I remember having to say this publicly in Galway in I think it was the end of summer of 2017. And I remember sitting there and I was like, I have to tell everyone the truth of this is what I'm doing. And I felt like such physical fear, you know, such adrenaline running through my body. I just wanted to run, you know, I was in complete fight or flight. I just wanted to run out of the room. But I said to myself, you know, stay here and just speak and just share honestly. And I did, and I broke through that fear and into trust, because so many in the audience came up to me and they're like, absolutely, of course, this is the way. This is the only way to do it. And again, that was all training grounds, all the initiations that I needed to embody in trust in who I am. And even if I'm saying one way and then another way emerges, that I'm actually able to do so. And it's not about looking to others for permission or validation in the direction that I'm going in, but actually to know, no, I know the direction I'm going in, and I'm actually moving through that right now, whereby, you know, I'm going in a new direction in my life's work in terms of expressing speaking to specifically around this whole journey of supporting visionaries, because this is who I am myself. Instead of, talking, whereas before I was very much like generally talking about nutrition and, helping people with burnout, and kind of hiding this other aspect of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, no, this is what you're here to do. And that's daunting to move through, because you're thinking, is anyone going to receive this message? And, where is it going to go? Like, you don't know, because I don't have past experience of it yet developed. But I know when I look back on the pathway that I've been on, this has always been the case, and I'm always brought to a new precipice. But yes, all of the experiences that I've had to this date are all part of it. They're not like abandoned. They're actually brought with me. And all the foundation around nutrition and supporting people in that way is all part of that, and that's my kind of unique medicine that I'm bringing. In terms of, I'm not supporting people to, I know your direction is very much supporting people to build our kingdoms and our sacred work out into the world. I feel mine is a different angle, but yeah, it's the same. Like, it's for the same intention and the same aim of actually bringing this into earth. But I know that I have so much to offer in this area, because I know that it's actually essential to support people in this way, and for them to then have those tools to have as a lifelong practice, so they can keep expanding their capacity to hold their power. And I wrote a newsletter yesterday. I said we have like a negative connotation around the word power, because we say about, they're in their power, they're coming into their power. People think automatically, oh, that that means that you're like this kind of ego maniac person, or or like enforcing their will on life. Like, I want this, so I'm going to force it onto everyone. But actually, true power comes from complete surrender to the divine, that you're a vehicle for that. And so the more that you can attune to that, that's, for me, is where you find your trust. And it's like, because that is what then will draw in the support, will draw in the circumstances that will enable you to fulfill your part and your role. Yeah.
This is absolutely brilliant, Aisling. So let's kind of lead into that part now. Ultimately, what is the trust in? Because we were talking about earlier, it's trust in many different things. A lot of people have trouble trusting themselves, because we've seen how we've really messed stuff up in the past and so on. And it can be challenging to come into, I fully lean into myself. And also, we're aware, whether we're conscious of it or not, we're subconsciously aware of the severe limitations of the small self and of the mind. In all of its wonders, the mind is a fantastic tool, but we know that our small individual self doesn't have the capacity to materialize these bigger visions that we're calling on. What are we leaning into in the trust? And obviously, you and I are completely on the same page that the trust ultimately is, and this is what we got to root into, this is where the anchor's got to be. This trust is in the divine within. It's not an outside concept of a higher being. It's the divine that lives within you, and essentially giving over the small self to that. Like, for me, for example, the daily practice is giving myself over. Yes, the small me doesn't have a clue. I don't know what I'm doing. This does. And that's where the power lies, exactly like you're saying. So could you say a bit more about, I want to hear more about your journey with this, but I also want to hear about how this relates to those you're here to connect with. And before you do that, I just want to add one point. For me, certainly for my clients, and I know it's been the case for you as well, so I'm assuming it's going to be the case for all of us. It's something we've had to hide, Like you've said, that divine presence has always been there. You've put it in your book. It's there your entire life. Simply the fact of a divine presence being there has not been welcome in this world. That in itself is something that we've had to keep hidden. And so what I notice is that a lot of the lack of trust that we have is because we're kind of masking ourselves to ourselves And we literally lose the sense of who am I? What am I anchoring into? Because this thick, layered masking system is so heavy. We're like obscuring the fact that we're here as way showers sent by the divine for this new time. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, the divine presence has always been there, but I suppose I never was able to acknowledge that to myself or articulate that to myself. And I think I first started to really hear the voice myself of the divine within myself when I was 19 and I got really ill and ended up being on medication for 4.5 years. And during that time, I had this voice that said, you're going through this for a reason. And that was the divine talking to me. I was guided to, I trained as an occupational therapist, and that was all part of the initiation that I was to move through, because I had to fully immerse myself in so that I could then be able to help other people to unravel. Because whereas if I had known exactly who I was from a very young child, my mom knew that about me since I was 4. She had a reading done, but she kept that away from me till I was 29, because again, that she was divinely guided to not be telling me. I had to go so fully in and have all the masks and all the programs and go so far away from myself to then come back home, take the journey back home. Yeah. Because only then could I actually possibly guide anyone. Whereas otherwise I'd be like, I just came here and it's just like, this is who I am. It's amazing. And, of course. And everyone's like, I can't relate to you. What are you talking about? So again, the divine was guiding me through that, because once I started to heal my body, I got this like instant message of, yeah, you're here to guide a new tomorrow, and you're here to support those to bring in this new paradigm. And all these words were coming in. I didn't even understand what it really meant fully, but I had, they're just like all these seeds that kept like just like landing into my psyche, into my being. And it was the voice of the divine that brought through the Girl Against Fluoride campaign. It brought through, our connection. It brought through the next wave of going into really knowing who I am as a ancient one, and just going through this whole unraveling process to then land back fully in, to root back fully into my physical reality. And that was catalyzed by the passing of my mom, where I was hiding again from myself. I was completely not seeing who I fully was still, even though I had all that experience under my belt. And it was the death of my mom that really just took everything away that I was clinging to, so that I could land in who I am. And yeah, so that divine presence has been telling me all along, like, this is what you're here to bring in. And that was, the initiation of bringing in Ashling Health School and establishing that, which I feel was just the beginning, which is like almost like a trial run for me to just figure it out. Whereas now I'm like, oh no, I now see the whole map. I see the blueprint that I have to build over the next like 30, 40 years. And so the more that I've given myself to that, and then let that be my lived experience, the more it's just become more and more real and more tangible and more, of course you're doing this, of course you're doing this. And then you continuously bring forth the lessons that you've already gone through into the next phase that you're going into. So then you're becoming more and more refined in what you're doing. And then that when the lessons and the challenges come in, you're able to see them more like, oh yeah, this is all part of it. I have my dad here, and he's kind of not able to see fully, but I'm like, he's playing the perfect role because he's given me the chance to strengthen into who I am. Whereas before I was like taking it all personal. Why is he saying all these things? And I don't like what these things are, and all these kind of things. And now I'm looking at it going, God, it's got nothing to do with me. He's just playing his role because he has to provide that level of friction for me to go, this is who I am, and I won't be moved from it ever again, no matter what you say.
I feel like we should just pause for a moment and just send out a clarion call of reclamation for all the beautiful ones listening to this. Let this be the moment where, in a new way, in a deeper way than you've ever done before, you come into full self-ownership, full self-reclamation of who you really are, full self-seeing, full self-knowing of your divine role that in fact nobody can see fully except for the divine that's within you. This is the number one point of reference. We just spend a moment together anchoring into the core of ourselves. You can drop down through the center of the heart and establishing now that direct communion with the divine within. If we can make this our absolute number one go-to point before the mind, especially before anybody else, even our loved ones, even our friends, even our partners, if we can make this the number one go-to point, and the practice has to be, creating space, it has to be a discipline of creating space in daily life that you're constantly coming back to this. So like for you now, Aisling, using the example, you've got a scenario that you're navigating right now, and it has to be something that you escape to another room, like if necessary, 10 times a day to come back in. This is how we do it. This is the routing. And honestly, if we can become so strong in that we're immovable from that place, it's like the anchor that's rooted into the very core of the greatest depths of the ocean. There's nothing that can sway us. It just has to be this profound homeness for self.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that, because no longer can you look to the outside world for that, because it's not there. It has to be within. It has to be within.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, it seems to be becoming more obvious that the outside world is malfunctioning.
Absolutely, it's literally like, oh my God, turn off the radio, and turn off the channel, and turn off all the noise. It's like you actually have to be able to hear yourself, and and I think because our field is not just for us personally, but it's like we're here to steward a whole new paradigm, and that's in our field.
Yeah.
Then our level of responsibility to our field is higher than all of those things.
Absolutely.
And when you keep attuning to that, no matter what you're facing, you keep coming back to that, like as a daily thing, as a daily practice. The small self fears and doubts then just kind of come silly. Like I texted Mary Helen in 2020 saying I couldn't finish the book. She just said, kindly tell that voice to F off. She said the full word. I won't say it here because you're live. And I just laughed my head off when I received her message back, because it was like, don't be so ridiculous. What are you talking about? Because the mind will conjure up all these reasons why you can't do this and do this and do this. And it's like, you have to summon that strength within yourself to go, that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous, because what you're here for is so much bigger than that. And again, it's not personal either. It's like, because even I said to Richie actually today, I said, when I used to do my sea swimming, after my mom passed away, that was like huge medicine for me, going into the cold water. Couldn't do it now, but it was just at that time I needed to have that kind of level of intensity with the cold water, just like releasing that grief from my body. And I remember thinking, gosh, it's hard to go in now because it's cold, take off my clothes going in. But I had this voice that said, if you don't do this, you're letting everyone else down.
Wow.
Because you're not just doing it for yourself, You're doing this to show other people
Mm.
what's possible for them.
Mm.
To yes, the fears are there.
Mm.
You know, people say to me, will the fears ever go?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily the fears ever go, but your trust gets bigger than the fears.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what happens.
Oh gosh, I love that you say that, Aisling. I like to say that giving in to the small self fears is really selfish, which is pretty much exactly what you just said.
I'm just after getting a really funny image. My mom actually had this thing before she left her physical form. She had this like little Lego man.
Yeah.
She said to me, "This is your small self talking to yourself." So let's just have her as a little Lego person with the funny hat on. You're listening to this person dictating to you, like. I just thought it was so funny.
That is a perfect analogy. Small self versus the
yeah. You're just like, you actually don't know. You don't know. So I'm not going to try to overly explain this to you, but trust me on this.
It's exactly like that saying that you shouldn't ask somebody who has never gone traveling for directions.
Exactly.
Small self hasn't got a clue. It's the wrong place to be going for advice.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. And let that be a real message to everyone, like as a key takeaway from this, that to be able to listen to the voice of the divine within yourself and to trust in that, and to only seek support and guidance from those who are living from their divine self as the forefront of their life, and to really honor yourself, to not go to the other places where it's going to be shut down, because it's not understandable unless somebody's had their own experience or is on their own committed journey with it.
Absolutely.
And Richie to me is like a real inspiration in that, and that's why we've been brought together by the divine. That was definitely orchestrated so that we could strengthen that field. So I think the more of us that come together, not necessarily that we have to be in romantic relationships with each other, but that we're actually in true, genuine intimacy with each other, of like, I see who you are and I want you to do this, and you are doing this, and we're actually doing this together.
I love that so much.
And that is another huge essential part of trust, because when my own mum passed away, it was those relationships that were helping me to anchor back into myself and to remind me of like, yeah, this is who I am. So I think when we're going through big life changes and big, how would I say, big transitions, that it's like, call in that support, because that is what helps to kind of keep that anchor sturdy and strong and centered.
I love that so much. So before we start to close up, I just want to say one more point on, you were mentioning earlier about our responsibility to our fields. And just in case anybody doesn't know, I think we should add in that our fields actually contain the blueprints or the templates of the New Earth reality. So that's why, it's there. It's there as like a living DNA infrastructure. And that's where it comes from. So you got to tend that like the most precious thing that is. It's the literal blueprint, like a map, a plan of the heaven on earth reality that we're here to establish for all of life. That is peace, prosperity, beauty, healing for everybody. Everybody. It's not just about us. It's so much bigger than that. It's for this entire earth, all the children, all of the animals, every being that is here on this planet. The templates for producing what will allow all to thrive lives in us. So that's the why. Aisling, could you say a little bit about where somebody could receive your support? Because, we touched a little bit on the tools that you have, and you've obviously got so many different tools that are all part of this journey. And we're saying these things, and it sounds easy, but we know that the actual journey is not necessarily easy at all, and you need all of the tools really to support you. So that's what you're creating with your work. How could somebody receive that from you?
So at the moment, well, my website is there, ashlingfitzgibbon.com is my name.
In the comments too.
But at the moment it is in a state of, I'm building out the infrastructure of that. So if you want to directly contact me, I'm opening up space to support others. You can contact me directly either on Instagram, which is my name, at Ashley Fitzgibbon. You can send me a direct message there, or you can email me, is another good way, which is info@ashlingfitzgibbon.com. Because I'll soon have my new website up and all of the beautiful offerings that I have been gestating for the past while. And I'm really, really excited to be opening the doors to Ashling's Health School once again in its new expression. And just being able to invite those who want support and will benefit from my guidance and the tools that I will be sharing. I would absolutely love the opportunity to talk with you and see what's possible.
So we should add that Aisling is building the Moving from Fear to Trust temple, which is really going to be the container for this journey, isn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of the first aspect that I'm building. So I hope to have that pretty soon. And that's going to be really like the first port of call for those who are coming through wanting the deep support in moving from fear to trust. So I feel the name actually came to me that it's a Moving from Fear to Trust portal, because I'm bringing people through the portal.
I love that. I love that so much. That's so cool.
And so I'm just kind of in the building phase of that behind the scenes, and I'm going to have that ready soon. And I'm also, for people who are ordering the book, I'm creating a free Moving from Fear to Trust workshop, which is like the first step of having an experience together in a collective, and really just to kind of explore how to apply that to your life, and taking the concepts in the book and just, bringing more life and wisdom into that, so that again, it's just making it more and more real and more tangible for people to get their feet on it. And I can just see so many people coming, and it's like crossing that bridge, and that's what I'm creating. It's crossing that bridge from fear to trust, and anchoring completely into the new earth.
I love that so much. I love that. And this is Ashling's book.
Yay.
I'm partway through. I haven't read the whole thing yet, Aisling. It's amazing.
Oh, well, you're a big feature of the book. You're
thank you.
You're like the key turner for me to realize, oh yeah, this is the role that I'm playing here, and this is where I'm best served, and really just to be able to offer that invitation to those who have that nudge inside themselves, and just to trust that, even if it's not yet fully tangible. And that's what it feels like initially. You're kind of like, I'm not sure, and when you actually have the space to be nourished and supported inside a temple, it just it cancels out all the noise of the programming of the world, and it just brings you back into that connection with yourself again.
Gosh, I love that so much.
Oh, so nourishing. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm just going to say that people can get this on your website.
Yeah. So my website has the book there ready for you to order, and I'm very excited to be shipping out. I've shipped out already to Canada, Australia, America, Sweden, England, Ireland. Obviously, we have our Irish. And have we gone anywhere else yet? I'll be sending out to Finland soon again. But so it's so amazing to think of this message going out into all different countries around the world, and I write everyone a special message inside, and I'm very, very excited. It feels just like, again, it's me kind of drawing from what's in the blueprint in my field, and then bringing through the message and just allowing that to come through me. It just feels like the most magical experience to actually be here now and sharing this message. and having the courage to stay the path. You know, I'm really in awe of the courage and the trust that I've demonstrated. And likewise with you, Ciara, you're also a living embodiment of this and are such a massive support and source of inspiration for me always. So thank you so much for the chance to speak on your channel and into your field and to share with your beautiful community. So thank you.
Oh, Aisling, I absolutely adore you. I love you so much. You're so amazing. You're so inspiring. Thank you for everything, everything.
Oh, well, I couldn't have asked for a better fairy godmother to Rian than you. Yeah. And for all the future children that are coming up, it's like we have a duty to help steward this and to steward in what we are bringing in, because it's only going to change when we bring it.
Precisely. So I cannot wait to see what you're doing over the next while. I'm going to be sharing Aisling's stuff on my platforms as she's got it all released, and we're going to drop her website down below and your Instagram as well. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Aisling, thank you for this. It's been amazing, and we'll see you all again soon.